Hi, hello, it's Unkempt Snugglepepper with another episode of Art Critiques. There's a link in the doobly-doo for submitting your art directly to me. You can also support the channel with Buy Me a Coffee, also linked down below. Let's get into it. So the first thing I'm going to point out is before rendering, I would fix a few anatomical errors. If the center of the chest goes through like here, because you have that line, that's the dividing line in the muscles, then it also has to go up through here. So the bottom of the chest is right there, and this is all rib cage. We got to get that there. I would change the hair. The way this is falling, it looks like it would be falling over her face. And then the hair that's over here and behind her should be catching less light because she's in front of the light source, I would assume, unless she's being lit from a different direction. So anything that is behind her is going to get this purple shadow. Next, if this is the center, this is also where her breast should come together. So one breast will be there. Because her arm is out, because one arm is pulling on the breast tissue, it's not going to be very round, but it is going to be closer to the center. And then her other breast is going to be here. And for this band to actually cover the nipple line, it's going to have to go like that. It's also going to compress her breast a little, unless it's being supported by something else that we don't see, or if it's part of the vine thing going on and it just happens to be covering her as to not make her indecent. All of that being said, in addition to the chest being here, you still have to consider the hip bone down here. You would have a bend here. You would have a bit of a love handle, and then her bottom, I assume, one leg is going straight down and one leg is going out. Sort of a figure skating ballet sort of pose. So I went ahead and selected the vines, and then so that we can render underneath them. And then I inverted the selection so we have everything else selected. Okay, so in the original post, someone said to use a reference, and you said, well, the original that I was using as a reference is only a line drawing, so I don't know how to render it. We still should probably, if you don't know how to render something, definitely find a reference, even if it's not the exact same reference. So she's not moving in the same direction, but we can use this as a reference for how the female body looks. So when we think about a torso, and we want to simplify the shape, it really is just a cylinder. In this case, it's curving this way and curving this way, but it's still a cylinder. So we can take the flesh color, and we know that part of it's going to be darker. It's going to get a little darker over here. It's going to have smooth radial shading, except where there are minor changes. And it's just slowly going to build up to a highlight, right? We have the core form shadow, which means the light is coming in this way. This gets the most amount of light. Over here, we get a shadow. Over here, we start to get a shadow. And then there is the cast shadow from the breast, the hair, the vines wrapping around her. So I'm going to kind of keep this shape in mind, and knowing that she's moving, I know that she is going to have one breast here, one breast here. I know her shoulders should be in shadow if the light is coming from up here, which the shading you have done suggests that that's where you're going to want the shading to come from. And then we just pull this down, smooth it out, and she needs a belly button. Should hit about there. She is also a little thin, so we're going to bring this in I'm going to bring this out just a little bit. We're going to work our way back up to that highlight. There's a bit of shadow under the arm. And then this hair behind her is all going to be in shadow. And then I'm going to remove this hair. Right, so there's where her neck would be. We're going to bring this purple back in, and we'll create a band like that. Alright, so now I have my main form shadow in. We'll go ahead and add it to this side of her. The next thing I'm going to do is I see in this reference that we can see a bit of her muscles. We also know that there's a little bit of, in a woman's torso, there's a little bit of fat that hangs out by the belly button and right below the belly button. So I'm going to bring this color in to kind of lighten that area just a bit. And we're going to work big shapes to small shapes. A note about the band that's going across. For it to do this, it is going to squish the breast tissue. So they're not going to have their usual shape. They're going to be slightly compressed, unless that band, again, is simply going over the breast tissue and not part of her outfit. And so I see that in our reference, there's kind of where the muscle meets, right? There's the rib cage, and it kind of goes down like that. And it's fairly soft, so we'll kind of keep those edges a little less hard. I see that in here we have a muscle in this area, some muscles in this area. So if you want her to be more muscular, those are very slight value shifts that build up the abdominal muscles. Okay, and then since we have the vines going like that, there's also going to be a cast shadow underneath. And if you have the vines on a separate layer, I wouldn't even worry about them until you feel pretty comfortable with how the torso is looking. And then we have a plane change where the breast goes off into the side tissue. And then in a similar fashion, these vines are also going to have a similar shadow to what her torso has. So as they go around her form towards the back, they're going to get darker. As the object casting the shadow gets closer to her torso, it's going to have more of a clear defined shadow, and as it gets farther away, it's going to get fuzzier. And then as it moves into the shadow, the form shadow is going to disappear because you can't have a shadow cast on something that's already in shadow. As you render, I would try to bring that mauve color a bit darker. It's blending in with the skin tone quite a bit. as you work with this, you'll need to decide if this mauve color is supposed to be darker than your skin tone or lighter. My selection tool wasn't the best, and I'm only working with one layer. So it's hard to go around these little mauve guys. I would also consider adding more leaves. Because they're kind of sporadic right now. I mean, we get the idea that it's supposed to be a plant-like shape, but it seems a little too random. There we go. Then I bring that highlight up a little bit. There we go. Now her torso is more rendered. That would be the shadow from her head. One last thing, I think we'll add a bit more shadow here. The breast comes forward and this shoulder moves behind. So that's how I would go about rendering it. I would start with those big shadows and work down into smaller shapes. I would find a reference of a female torso, even if it's in a different position. You still want to understand what the muscles are doing, where the rib cage is, where the hips are. Her hip would actually be hanging in here, so you'd have that bit of a highlight from her hip coming out and then her legs coming down like that. If these are her hips, it would be one of her legs is going out behind her. Otherwise, there's quite a big disparity between her hips and what her waist was. Hope this helps. If you like this video, go ahead and give a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. There's a link in the doobly-doo if you want to submit art directly to me, or if you want to go to my Buy Me a Coffee. Thanks for watching.